Snow White's story. Once upon a time, there was a beautiful princess named Snow White. She was kind and gentle and a friend to all animals. One day, Snow White met a charming prince. As they sang a song of love together, Snow White's evil stepmother, the queen, watched them. The queen was so jealous of Snow White's beauty that she ordered her huntsman to kill the young princess. But the huntsman couldn't bring himself to hurt Snow White. He told her to run far away so the queen would never find her. Snow White ran deep into the woods. She was lost and scared, but soon found herself in front of a cottage. The princess knocked, but no one was home. She slowly stepped inside. The cottage was a mess. With the help of her forest friends, Snow White cleaned every nook and cranny. "Maybe whoever lives here will let me stay," said Snow White. Upstairs, Snow White found 7 little beds. She thought they belonged to children. Tired from cleaning, Snow White yawned as she curled up on the beds and fell asleep. Meanwhile, the 7 dwarfs were heading home from a long day of working in a jewel mine. They were anxious to get home to their cottage in the woods. The 7 dwarfs were surprised when they found a princess inside their home. When Snow White awoke, she was charmed by the 7 dwarfs: Dopey, Sneezy, Happy, Grumpy, Doc, Bashful, and Sleepy. The dwarfs wanted to protect the beautiful princess from the evil queen, so they invited Snow White to live with them. To celebrate, the new friends sang and danced the night away. Back at the castle, the queen learned that Snow White was still alive. Enraged, she made a magic potion to change her appearance. Her plan was to trick the princess. After the dwarfs had set off for work the next day, the queen, disguised as an old peddler woman, offered Snow White a beautiful red apple. Snow White took one bite of the apple and fell into a deep sleep. The queen had poisoned her. When the dwarfs came home, they chased the queen to the top of a stormy mountain. Suddenly, lightning hit the mountain, and the queen fell, never to be seen again. But Snow White was still in a deep sleep. The 7 dwarfs kept watch over her day and night. Finally, Snow White's Prince Charming arrived. He had been searching everywhere for the beautiful princess he had sung with so long ago. The prince awakened Snow White with love's first kiss. The spell was broken. Snow White and the prince returned to the kingdom and lived happily ever after. The end. Merida's story. King Fergus and Queen Eleanor ruled the Kingdom of Dunbroch in Scotland. They had triplet sons and 1 daughter, the beautiful Princess Merida. All 4 children were mischievous. Queen Eleanor tried to teach Merida how to behave like a perfect princess. But Merida liked to slip away from the palace to practice with her bow and arrow. She was a skilled archer. One night, the queen announced that 3 clans were coming to visit. Each would present a suitor to compete for Merida's hand in marriage. Merida was horrified. "I won't go through with it," she shouted. To Merida's dismay, the suitors arrived as planned. Merida sat waiting on her throne for the archery contest to begin. She knew she could handle a bow and arrow far better than the suitors could. Once the suitors had taken their shots, Merida marched onto the field. The queen yelled for her to stop, but Merida didn't listen. She fired her arrows and hit each target dead center. She had won. Now she wouldn't have to marry anyone. Queen Eleanor was furious at Merida for ruining the contest. She warned that things needed to be set right. "Marriage is what you want," Merida shouted. Then she slashed the tapestry that depicted her family and ran away. Merida fled deep into the woods where mysterious blue will-o'-the-wisps led her to a cottage. Inside, she found a witch. Merida begged her to change her mother. The witch gave Merida a spell cake. Back at the castle, Merida presented the cake to her mother. She watched closely as Eleanor took a bite. At first, nothing happened, but then Eleanor began to feel sick. Merida helped Eleanor into bed. The next thing Merida knew, a huge furry shape was rising from the sheets. The witch's cake had turned Eleanor into a bear. Worried her mother was in danger, Merida sneaked her out of the castle. Merida and Eleanor Bear first went to the witch's cottage and only found a message. Fate be changed, look inside, mend the bond torn by pride. Merida would need time to figure out its meaning, but for now, she needed to teach her mother to fish. Merida realized that to mend the bond and break the spell, she must repair the tapestry she had torn. After sneaking into the castle, Merida and her mother were discovered by King Fergus. The king drew his sword. "It's not what you think," Merida cried. The king wouldn't listen. The king wouldn't listen. He slashed at the bear, who struck back, knocking him to the ground. The noise drew the visiting lords and their sons. Terrified, Eleanor Bear raced from the castle. Merida grabbed a needle and thread and the tapestry, then jumped on her horse. She took her little brothers too. They had eaten the spell cake and turned into bear cubs. Merida sewed as they all raced to save their mother. When Merida arrived, she wrapped the mended tapestry over her mother. "I want you back, Mom," Merida cried. "I love you." King Fergus was shocked to realize the bear was his beloved wife. Merida felt a hand brush her hair. The spell had been broken. Eleanor was human once again. The triplets were no longer bears. The queen smiled at Merida. From then on, Merida could be a princess and be herself. The end. Mulan's story. Thousands of years ago in ancient China, there lived a beautiful young woman named Mulan. She lived with her parents and a dog named Little Brother. Mulan's father had once been a great warrior, but his leg had been injured in battle. As an only child, Mulan felt responsible for upholding the family honor. One day, a man arrived with terrible news from the emperor. The Huns, China's enemy, had invaded. The emperor had ordered that one man from every family must join the imperial army. Mulan's aging father had to fight again. Mulan knew her father was too old to fight. Late that night, she made a big decision. After saying a prayer to the ancestors, she used a sword to cut her hair short. Then she put on her father's warrior clothes. As her parents slept, Mulan, now dressed as a young man, jumped onto her father's horse, Khan. Then she raced off to join the imperial army in her father's place. Somehow, she would find a way to bring honor to her family. When Mulan arrived at the Imperial Army's training camp, she met Captain Li Shang. "What is your name?" he asked Mulan. "My name? It's, Ping," Mulan said. To her amazement, Shang and the other soldiers believed she was a man. Shang worked hard to teach his soldiers strength and discipline. Mulan struggled to keep up. Frustrated, Shang told her to go home. But to earn the soldiers' respect, Mulan retrieved an arrow atop a tall pole. This was the hardest training task of all, and Mulan had done it. Mulan was not alone on her journey. A dragon named Mushu, sent from the ancestors to be her guardian, and a cricket named Cricky were always at her side. Working together, they wrote a fake letter ordering Shang and his soldiers to go after the Huns. Now Mulan would get her chance to bring honor to her family. Heeding the letter's message, Shang led his soldiers into the mountains. Suddenly, they were surrounded by thousands of Huns. Working together, they wrote a fake letter ordering Shang and his soldiers to... Heeding the letter's message, Shang led his soldiers into the mountains. Suddenly, they were surrounded by thousands of Huns. Mulan got an idea. She grabbed the very last cannon and, using Mushu's flame, lit the fuse. The cannon caused a massive avalanche of snow to fall on the Huns. But the danger wasn't over. Snow was now racing toward Mulan and her friends. Mulan's loyal horse, Khan, ran to her side. She jumped onto his back, and just as the snow was about to bury Shang, Mulan pulled him to safety. During the battle, Mulan had been injured. While caring for her wound, a medic realized that Ping was a woman. Shang had no choice but to leave Mulan behind. As she sat with Khan, Mushu, and Cricky, Mulan felt she had failed her family and herself. Then, she heard the Huns' voices. Mulan raced to the imperial city to warn Shang. "The Huns are alive," she told him. "They're in the city." But Shang felt betrayed by Mulan and did not trust her. Mulan tried warning the others, but no one would believe her. The Hun leader, Shan Yu, kidnapped the emperor, but Mulan and Shang rescued him. Furious, Shan Yu chased Mulan onto the palace roof, exactly as she planned. Mulan grabbed Shan Yu's sword and pinned his coat to the roof. Mulan grabbed Shan Yu's sword and pinned his coat to the roof. He couldn't move when Mushu and Cricky shot a rocket his way. The force of the explosion sent Mushu and Cricky flying through the air. Mulan and Shang fell together to the ground as fireworks began to fill the sky. The people were celebrating. The Huns had been banished and the imperial city was safe. The emperor was very grateful to Mulan. "You have saved us all," he said. And then he did something extraordinary. The emperor bowed to Mulan. Everyone in the plaza bowed to Mulan too. The emperor asked her to stay on as his advisor, but Mulan knew it was time to return to her family. At home, Mulan presented her father with a sword given to her by the emperor. "The greatest gift and honor is having you for a daughter," her father said. "I've missed you so." "Excuse me," said a voice behind them. "Does Mulan live here?" Shang had brought Mulan her helmet, and she invited him to stay for dinner. The end.